大家好，我是克劳，克劳好翻译的克劳。今天我想要跟大家分享游戏翻译英翻中与中翻英的妹妹嘎嘎。有关于游戏中翻英的部分，我在2018以及2019年的 TGDF 都有分享过基础的5个架构，包含了格式、专有名词、音译意义、特殊用语以及校稿等。这些我在前2年的论坛上都有做过经验分享，也有举了很多的例子。所以今年在中翻译的部分，我想更深入点探讨其中的妹妹嘎嘎。我今天的重点有4个，第一个是语言与文化，第二个是 English， 就是所谓的中式英文，又称 Chinglish。第3个呢是英英字典，第4个是提供完整翻译资料的重要性。首先我们来看看语言与文化的部分。我们先回想，不管是游戏或者是电影、影集中，有没有曾经明明每个字我都懂，但是不确定是什么意思的？我先来举例说明，在 Netflix 的影集《破案神探》Mindhunter 里，这部影集描述在保守的70年代开创全新的犯人侧写模式。他们推论出杀人犯应该是符合一些条件的，但他们目前遇到的嫌疑犯很明显有些条件完全不吻合。
The other things don't add up.
Like what?
Family background. No absent father. No signs of a domineering or abusive mother.
I met an Irishman once who only drank milk.
好，当男主角告诉他的搭档说这些条件都不符合的时候，他的搭档 Bill Tench 他回答说 I met an Irishman once who only drank milk。 中文字面上的意思是，我还曾遇到一个只喝牛奶的爱尔兰人呢。他这里想要表达的是什么呢？一般人对于爱尔兰人的刻板印象是什么？好像是他们喝很多酒吧。先声明，我对任何国籍的人都没有偏见，这边呢只是借由《破案神探》这个影集中一句台词来举例说明而已。如果社会大众对爱尔兰人的刻板印象是喝很多酒，那刚刚这个开车的人他在影集中所提到只喝牛奶的爱尔兰人，就是颠覆大家的印象，是一个例外。所以他是在告诉他剧中的搭档，凡事都有例外。但是从字面上，我们完全看不出相关联性。我们再举一个例子，之前我合作的游戏《哥布林的道具屋》，这款游戏玩家是扮演一个贩卖武器防具的哥布林。他在揽客的时候有句台词是这样子的：白日依山尽，黄河入海流，欲穷拟老木，赶紧来选购。前2句的意思只是单纯的描述风景，夕阳依傍着西山慢慢的沉没，滔滔黄河朝着东海汹涌奔流。后2句是游戏企划自己的巧思，把原始的诗词加入台语，转变成鼓励客人赶快来店里用力买。所以当我们在做在地化时，直翻前2句似乎意义不大，而且翻下去英文肯定会太长。所以这句话我最后的处理方式是这样子的：游戏在地化不仅仅是翻译而已，对于语言的文化熟悉度也是很重要的。万一在目标语言中，我翻烂字典也找不到相对应的字词或描述时，我建议直接加注演讲者的意思。例如《破案神探》中刚刚开车那位先生他讲的那句话，我还遇过只喝牛奶的爱尔兰人呢，直接翻成凡事都有例外。当然，如果时间空间足够，我建议先把原来的文字翻出来，再加上真正的意思。在台湾，借由语言与文化，我们还可以讨论一个面向：日文借字，也就是和日英语。台湾人深受日本文化的影响，不管是漫画、电动还是影集等等，都有许多由日文借来的字词。例如第一个 salaryman， 其实在日文呢就是从英文借来的，所以我们可能会觉得 现在中文要翻成英文，是不是刚好可以直接推回去，就叫做 salaryman？ 但其实在英文是没有 salaryman 这种用法的。实测的结果，他们可能可以猜出意思，但是不会这样使用。所以游戏中若提到领月薪的员工，英文我们无法直接说 I am a salaryman， 这是错的。领月薪是要这样表达 I am salaried， I am salaried。 第二个例子呢，我们来看看 OL， 就是我们常说的 office lady， 粉领族，白领女性。 office lady 挺顺的啊，可是呢，在美国真的不会这样子使用。如果是办公室一个常常被指派去做一些杂七杂八的琐事，是叫 Guy Friday。女生呢叫 Gal Friday， 有男有女。我美国的朋友还特别说 office lady 听起来挺歧视的，所以不建议使用。最后一个，我们看看跟文化相关的日文介字。付丧神，这个是我在与西蒙创意合作的时候，一系列的实用系少女介绍中，他们对于付丧神的解释是这样子的：传说与怪谈中，经常描述古老的事物诞生出自己的灵魂与意识，化身为精灵或妖怪，藏匿在人类的社会中，对人们时而帮助，时而戏弄。他们也引用了东汉论衡。物之老者，其精为人。所以，我们看到付丧神时，虽然不是中文里有的名词，但有类似的概念，便也欣然接受。但在美国文化中没有这种概念，这不是像安娜贝尔，安娜贝尔是被恶灵附身，但是这里的古老物件是自己产生出意识与灵魂。所以，这里的付丧神，我处理的方式是用日文表达。Tsukumogami 后面再加上注解。这些呢是日文介字的例子。中文里我们也有类似的例子吗？有的哦。例如我最近合作的一款游戏《疯魔米娜：不死身的秘密》。游戏中有个角色是一个 coser， 角色扮演者，所以中翻英可不可以直接推回去就叫做 coser 呢？不行哦。我们习以为常的 coser 是 costume 服装加 play 扮演，还有 er 这个字尾是意思是做什么动作的人，所以是 cosplayer， 我们中文简称 coser。英文里面还是要用原来的 cosplayer 才可以。再来我们看看 English， 就是中式英文又称 Chinglish。其实最常见的呢就是好久不见。我们常有人讲 long time no see， 当然就文法而言这是错误的，但只要一个语言是活的，有人使用，就有无限的可能与成长。所以现在英文中讲 long time no see 其实也是可以的。其他很多的 English 对以英文为母语的人来说，听起来真的就是怪怪的，他们可能可以猜出意思，听起来就是很别扭。例如第一个，我非常喜欢这个 I very much like this， 错的。第二个，你看看 UCC， 这也是错的。最后一个，好吃 good eat， 这三个呢都是错误的。中文与英文根本上句型结构的不同，所以很多时候我们是要理解意思，无法直翻的。例如我最近合作的一款游戏《小魔女诺贝塔》，游戏中有个小黑猫对昏迷的小魔女说：“你要睡到什么时候？”问号。一开始游戏制作自己翻 When are you going to sleep？ 这句话是完全相反的意思。在英文的意思是说你什么时候要上床去睡觉。所以这边我们要先理解，你要睡到什么时候，其实是要这个人起床了，而不是睡觉。我一开始翻 How long are you going to sleep？ 你要睡多久？可是觉得字面上这样不太够，所以后来呢改成3的 How much longer are you going to sleep？ 强调你到底要睡到多久啊？最后呢，我跟游戏制作讨论，决定要翻成 Are you going to lie on the ground forever? 躺在地上，一辈子躺在地上，或是永远躺在地上。可能有些人会觉得，原本中文里并没有写躺在地上，也没有讲到永远啊，这样子翻会不会夸张了点？可是我们这句话的重点在于把小魔女叫起来，要开始探险旅程，而不是去睡觉。所以呢，这个是要了解原文的意思，再跟游戏制作讨论出来的结果。有时候语言是没有逻辑可言的，单纯就只是大多数讲这个语言的人习惯这样讲而已。例如我说胭脂马遇到关老爷，如果改成红芝麻遇到关老爷，这样听起来就是怪。又例如我说你电话号码几号，我是向对方要他的电话号码，而不是问他的电话号码有几个号码。前2年的分享我都有用字首字跟字尾来解释同义字的陷阱，这一次我想强调的是，使用英英字典上的解释是非常重要的。这里我们来看个例子，一般玩角色扮演游戏的时候，我们是不是常常需要查看或检视？这时候我们会使用哪个字呢？如果我们直接用汉英字典，是不是可能会找到 check 还有 exam 这2个字？哪个字比较适合？还是2个字都可以呢？我们这时候就要来看看英英字典的解释我这边所有的资料呢，都是从 thefreedictionary.com 上来的。我们先来看 check 的部分。最上面出现的是名词，所以 check 这个字比较常使用的是名词的用法。但是在 RPG 当中，查看、检视、调查新环境或是物件，应该都是一个动作，所以我们要找的是动词。那我们就卷到下面去看动词的部分。第一个，它的解释呢，是为了测定精准度、品质或其他状况而检视、测试。例如，确认刹车的磨损，确认文件上有没有拼错字。第二个呢，参考资料或权威讯息以进行验证。例如，说明之前先核对它的情况，翻字典确认一个拼字。最后一个就是打勾勾，例如清单上的事项完成就打勾勾。我们再来看看 exam， 在 thefreedictionary.com 上的资料呢，第一个使用的方式就是动词，那这个跟我们中文要的词性是一致的。第一个解释，仔细严谨的观察审视，例如检视房间找线索。第二个下面我们就先不看了，没有相关。所以以这个例子来说，我们在 RPG 游戏当中要的检视物件或是环境，查过英英字典后发现 exam 比 check 还要适合，所以我们这里会使用 exam。 我们再举一个例子，这个是西蒙创意的小圆的手摇饮料店 VR。 在游戏里，玩家是一个顾问，临时被请去手摇饮料店帮忙。手摇饮料店最重要的饮料之一就是珍珠奶茶，里面的黑珍珠本来程式自己用电脑翻成 Black Pearl， 这个就算不用看英英字典，我们也可以很明确的知道，就是黑色的珍珠珠宝。而且因为2个字的开头都是大写，其实是让我想到电影《神鬼奇航》里面的黑珍珠号。这个呢是英英字典出现的画面。所以我们回过头来想想，珍珠奶茶里的黑珍珠到底是什么？其实是一种粉圆，所以这里的拿取黑珍珠比较适合的翻译是 take the tapioca， 粉圆 take the tapioca。 就中翻译的部分，我想再次提醒提供完整资料的重要性。前2次的演讲呢，我提到说，除了提供给译者要翻译的文字之外，最好有上下文，还有每个角色的个性、性别、年龄等等，最好还有各角色之间的关系图。这里举模拟手札的2创作品《新入谷物语》为例子。当初我们在合作的时候，魔女用这张人物关系图来解释人物之间的关联，所有爱恨情仇都非常的清楚。为什么解释人际关系很重要呢？我们先想一下，我们生活里 跟每个人讲话的语气、用字、遣词应该都不一样吧？所以呢，解释清楚每个人之间的关系，对游戏在地化来说是非常重要的。我们再举一个例子，之前我合作过的手机游戏 Unexpected， 一开始游戏企划就给我很阳春的文本，长这个样子。从111开始到120似乎都还好，但是120我去上个洗手间，接下来的121来了，我自己理解成说话者上完厕所回来了，但是122又一次来了，好吧，可能就强调他真的回来了。但是123的等好久了，终于来了，就有点怪怪的。接下来的对话也是很奇怪，所以我请游戏企划给我看画面之后，才知道说游戏是长这个样子。女主角是一个网红，上面的对话呢是她的粉丝打的，所以提供完整的资料对游戏在地化来说是非常重要的。游戏中翻音我先分享到这里，接下来我想要讨论的是英翻中的部分。有鉴于英翻中的对象比较多是外国的发行商或者是制作团队，以下的演讲我会用英文的方式呈现，字幕也是准备有中英对照。Now I'm going to talk about localization from English to Chinese. To begin with, I would like to clarify that even in Taiwan, the official language is Mandarin, the same as that in China. But Taiwanese Mandarin is quite different in many aspects. As I am no expert in linguistics, I would like to talk about Taiwanese Mandarin as a game player. We all know that in Taiwan, we use traditional characters, while in China, simplified characters are used. For some developers, it may be easier to have the game translated into 普通话, the Mandarin used in China, and then use a wonderful function in Microsoft Office to convert it to traditional Chinese. I can tell you from experience that this is a very risky decision. In China, characters are simplified too much, and this results in homophones. Different characters with different meanings, but they have similar sounds. These homophones can be rather confusing. Here I have an example. Superdry. This is a brand from the UK. From English to Mandarin, Google Translate offers the following translation. The first character means super, which is fine, but the second means the F word. In simplified Chinese, the F word and dry refer to the same character, so that is why the translation becomes super plus the F word. If we search online, we can find many other examples like this. Confusing terms are constantly caused by this form of translation. In this presentation, we will not be focusing on specific terms, but from this common example, we conclude that auto-translation does not work well enough, at least not yet. From my experience, if we have the game translated from English to traditional Chinese first, and then translated into simplified Chinese, the translation may be acceptable, but then we will face another problem. We use different terms. Certainly, we can guess the meaning, just as when we read simplified Chinese. We grasp the idea, but it is not optimum. Another thing to keep in mind when it comes to translating from English to Chinese is the word order, where and how the words should be arranged, and when to insert a comma or even a period is not quite as straightforward as one would think. As such, there are rules provided by linguists. So here, I'd like to elaborate a little bit more on Taiwanese Mandarin. At the beginning of the second part of my presentation, I explained Taiwanese Mandarin is different from Mandarin used in other parts of the world. So, what makes Taiwanese Mandarin Taiwanese? Look at the title of my presentation. This is a good example to show what Taiwanese Mandarin is. Game localization, all about the Meme Gaga. What is this Meme Gaga? Word for word, it means brow, brow, corner, corner, and it makes no sense at all to most people. This term is from Taiwanese, and we spell it out with Chinese characters. Yet ask anyone from Taiwan, and they most likely have heard of this before. It means the details you learn from experience, little things you should pay attention to. There are many more terms like this, and Mimigaga is just one of them. This may be a small detail, but it reminds us of Taiwan. This is what I mean by a Taiwanese touch. Just like milk tea. Yes, we all love milk tea. But if you add in tapioca, or what we call black pearl in Taiwan, you have pearl milk tea or bubble tea, a specialty from Taiwan. Then you may wonder, can we translate the whole game into Taiwanese? Certainly. But the problem is, most people in Taiwan do not know the writing system of Taiwanese. In the last century, Taiwanese, the dialect, was discriminated against for over 30 years, while only Mandarin was promoted in school. Since I was little, I have never learned how to write in Taiwanese. If I want to learn a Taiwanese writing system now, I have to attend a cram school or community college. It is simply not practical to translate a whole game into Taiwanese. I suggest, however, that we add in certain words here and there to make the translation sound more Taiwanese to us. As for the content, any topic that is accepted in the US and Europe can and will be accepted in Taiwan. Here, I would like to quote from our president of Executive Yuan. Please cherish the freedom we have in Taiwan that allows us to play any game however we like. In Taiwan, the translation tends to be a little bit more flexible and more elaborate. We also try to avoid pronouns and relative pronouns for the thing or event that is mentioned previously. Last, I would like to stress on one more thing. It is especially important to provide the translator with some trivia about the story and the characters. Take the game that I'm working on, The Rainy Night Butcher, for an example. In the game, there is a copycat of a serial killer. This copycat, depending on your decision, may have killed 2 to 3 people. The game designer also showed me the diary of the copycat killer. In the diary, I can clearly tell privately he is a cruel and cold-blooded person, rude as well. He is disappointed in life in general, and he never received much education. When I translate his lines, I will use incomplete grammar, easier wording, and more swearing. Another example. In the same game, the player is the female reporter who used to date the detective investigating the serial murder. It was she who asked to end the relationship, while the detective still wants to be with her. So usually, when the reporter talks, she is polite and professional. But when she talks to her ex-boyfriend, the detective, she sounds more direct and demanding. This is a prime example of why it is so important for translators to study the dialogue and learn about the interpersonal relationships in the game. In real life or any other occasion, when we can actually see and hear the speaker, we know if they are sincere, they mean what they say, or they are just being ironic. We can tell this by their intonation, their facial expression, and even their body language. Therefore, please keep this in mind. If a translator only reads the script, it is not enough for them to come up with the most suitable translation. Imagine a senior who received good education when he was young, and now he enjoys high social status. When he talks in public, we'd think he tries to maintain a civilized image. So he will say yes instead of yeah or yep. No matter how angry he is, he will not spell out any dirty words. He would use a euphemism, something less offensive. I think these are the main differences between simply translating a game versus formal localization. Let's do a quick recap. First, for localization in Taiwan, converting the simplified Chinese into traditional Chinese by word is not enough. Second, word order, syntax, and pronouns are quite different in Chinese, Remember to perform adjustments when necessary. Third, please get as much background information as you can for the translator. The more, the better, the best. This concludes my presentation. It is my honor to share my experience in game localization with you today. Thank you very much. Let's work on a great game together.